Hi everyone, how's it going? We're back once more into the breach.
We're
The
late
Halo breach.
or
The
early.
great.
One of the two.
It'll be obvious from the title of this episode, unless Duncan decides to be fucking smart about it. But we're doing 2 films this week to make up for the fact that we didn't do one last week because, despite the fact that we both watched it, we didn't have time to record.
Yeah, but we're also going to try and upload this one early for this week.
Yes.
So we're both early and late.
Yeah, so you're getting 1 episode early, 1 episode late.
If Jamie sends his dang audio file in time, that is.
Wow. I've never, ever once in my life messed that up. I resent you.
What films are we doing?
Okay.
What is this?
First film...
Jimmy, we're a minute in and we've not said the name of the podcast or what we're doing or who we are.
That's tradition. It's
or why important.
We are. This is the Golden Talkies.
Well, you cut out a bit for me there, but I think you.
You cut out super bad.
Right.
Very
well,
aggressive.
that's gonna be fun because I'm probably not gonna have a lot of time to edit this one, so we'll just leave that in. This is the Golden Talkies Podcast, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Where we watch films that came out how long ago?
50 years ago.
This week.
According to some witnesses. This week, yes, exactly.
I think actually one of the films, if this does go up tomorrow, as of the day of recording, this goes up tomorrow, it'll be on the day the film came out, and then the other one will be 9 days out of date.
Okay, let me just... So yeah, the films we are watching, the first one is Le Cercle Rouge, which is a Jean-Pierre Melville film, a heist film, and that is the one that came out last week on the 20th of October in France. And then the second film we are watching is The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which is a film about Dracula, and it came out on the 29th of October. In the US.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's today's date, as you listen to this, potentially.
Yeah, if Duncan's a fast boy.
If Jamie sends me the audio in time.
If not, don't judge me. Yeah.
Historical context, I'm afraid I don't really have much. What I do have is that Chavo Guerrero Jr. was born on 20th October 1970.
Mm-hmm.
He's a wrestler.
Very nice.
Yep, cool. The Cercle Rouge. Le Cercle Rouge. Who is Jean-Pierre Melville?
Jean-Pierre Melville is a French director. He mostly directed simple genre fare, but he did it with such aplomb that he's considered very influential.
Apparently he's a big influence.
Themes of honor.
Oh.
His films have persistent themes of honor. Yeah, that's really the persistent theme.
Apparently he's a big influence on the French New Wave.
Yes.
Despite not being part of it himself, which I found interesting, because I mean this film came out after the French New Wave, so he was very active during that period, but he was not part of it. But apparently very influential.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It's interesting. Yeah, this is actually his penultimate film, which I hadn't appreciated.
Oh, really? Cool.
Sorry, there's one called Un Flic. That's the last one he did.
Right.
But it's interesting, yeah. I think, you'll know more about it than me, but I think obviously, the French New Wave's, very exclusive in its categorizations in a way that a lot of other things aren't.
Yeah. There's very specific films and filmmakers that are part of the French New Wave, and that's just it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame for him, because...
Well, I guess so. But then if he's not part of it, then he's not part of it,
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. I realise he's not. I mean, I've only watched one film of his, but even from this, it's pretty clear it's not. I wouldn't say it's French New Wave-esque or inspired by such.
No.
Disagree.
No. So, do you want to do your little plot summary thing?
Yeah, sure. I'll be even briefer than usual this time because we've got to get through, and because luckily they're both pretty simple anyway. This one is a heist film, as I said. It is about a jewelry store robbery. Our main man, Corey, is about to get out of jail, and then a former like boss of his says, "Hey, there's this jewelry store. It's pretty vulnerable. You should go steal some stuff from it for me."
Yeah.
And he's initially reluctant, but eventually he decides to go along with it.
Well, he does it himself though, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole thing. The boss wanted him to
Mhm.
do it, but he does it out with the boss's sort of structure and stuff. The boss
okay.
is after him the
Yeah.
whole film.
That's true.
Yeah.
He robs like the former like mafia boss, like as soon as
Yeah.
he leaves the prison, and then
Yeah.
he's always after him. He's joined by it's not implied what crime he committed, but something very bad. So I'm going to assume murderer. Named what's his name? It's like Volga or something.
Oh, I don't know.
Vogel, that's it. So Vogel comes with him accidentally after trying to hide in his car. After that, they recruit a gunman who Vogel knows, who has had psychiatric problems all of his life. And together they rob the jewelry store, but at the last second they are tricked by a policeman when they're trying to fence the goods, and they are all shot. The policeman has a sort of running subplot throughout the film where he's trying to catch Vogel, and this is like his coup de grace as he finally wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty simple film. Even though I was trying to summarize it down a bit, I think you'd agree I didn't really miss much in terms of the actual plot of it.
No, I don't think so. The sort of robbery sequence itself is famously, well, I say famously, I don't know how famous it is, but certainly in the stuff you read about the film, famously long. It's like half an hour with very little dialogue, just of the heist going down.
Yeah.
So I
It's
guess that
very
makes it
nice.
pretty easy to summarize, for sure.
Yeah. This is mostly a film about a robbery that some people plan, and then it happens, and nothing really goes wrong with it. And it's nice in that way.
Yeah.
I like watching. I think for me the pleasure of this film is just that it's watching a bunch of very competent people do their jobs quite well. Like no one's like a super genius or anything in it, but they're all very confident about what they do. They're all very skilled, and they just all sort of get on with the job, and it's quite beautiful in its own way. And that's sort of my main takeaway at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. What was I going to say?
What were you going to say?
Interesting. Yeah, the sequence,
Talk about
the heist
successes I
sequence
liked
is
when
very
you tried.
nice. What?
The heist sequence is very nice.
Yeah.
And I like a lot the sequence where Vogel escapes from the train, because it's just when he's running through the woods, and like you see like the sort of circle of policemen like coming down on him. It's all this very well organized and very intimidating.
It is.
It's all
Yeah,
quite-
there's a lot of
It's all very
nice,
subdued.
very nice sequences. There's he gets. Wait, did you talk about him getting in the boot of the main character's car?
Very briefly, if you want.
Yeah,
to go
that's
into
quite an interesting bit where basically the main character leaves his boot unlocked because he's heard about the fugitive in the radio, and he actually wants him to get in the boot, which is quite an interesting thing. I thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust between them, even at first, because like there are two loaded guns in that boot as well, and yet he's still pretty cool with the convicted killer having them.
Yeah.
What did you think of the sequence dealing with the sniper's nightmares, which is probably the most outlandish? Of it?
With the spiders and the lizards and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the character, the two characters, the murderer and the sort of thief, I guess we could call them, because I can't remember their names. Which one of it is it that knows the sniper? Is it the murderer?
Vogel knows him. Yeah.
Is that
the murderer?
The murderer, yeah. So he says that he's worked with him before and he's a crack shot, but now he's a bit of an alcoholic. And then we cut to him kind of lying in bed with all sorts of beasts crawling over him, snakes and spiders and lizards and stuff. I thought it worked pretty well. It was quite cool.
Yeah, I really like. It was clearly shot like super cheaply, but I thought it really worked quite well for a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all like completely silent. It's like he screams, but there's no sound.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Despite being quite minimalist compared to a lot of the other dream sequences we've seen, certainly.
Yeah, it's a nice dream sequence. The spiders are a bit shit. They're
yeah, they're not good
spiders,
effects, but I think.
But I
they're
think
good
the
enough
lizards
to-
are real. The lizards are real, right?
they looked real enough to me.
Yeah, I think like the lizard, everything apart from the spiders are real, and that's really cool. The spiders, I feel like they look a little bit like kind of Jason the Argonauts kind of thing, which. But then if it's a dream sequence, that kind of works. It kind of disorientates the viewer a bit as well.
Well, it's more about like showing just like conveying the emotion of like being trapped in a nightmare. I guess like it doesn't. I mean, we know it's not a real like, so it's not like it needs to sell us too much on that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was cool. There were quite a lot of cool sequences in the film.
It's just. Well, like I say, it's just really nice to see people who just know what they're doing and just sort of get on with it. And it's just sort of it's almost relaxing in a way. It's just, they're very meticulous. Just sort of see them go process step by step. And then they succeed. I really like that nothing goes wrong in the heist itself, actually. So you just sort of get to enjoy watching it. Because I know, like, obviously the more exciting thing, I suppose, or at least the more conventional thing, is to have something go wrong. So that's the drama.
Well, they briefly imply that maybe the lights aren't going off as planned, and then they do.
Yeah, but like,
which is a nice. There's like a nice little moment or two of tension, and then you're like, oh, good, fine, it's working.
Yeah, and then like there's a security guard, and like he sort of gets out of his bonds and manages to hit the alarm, but only after they've left. So it doesn't actually affect anything. It's just a little bit of rising drama towards the end. But yeah, it's very nice. You know, if you ever go on like Reddit, like r/strangely satisfying, it's that sort of vibe film, I would say. So it was just pretty good. To turn to the themes, because I actually read a bit about this film, so I can at least talk about it.
Oh, nice.
So Jean-Pierre Melville, perhaps one author has opined, inspired by his experiences fighting for the French resistance. Seems to desperately want to return to a world of honor. So all of his characters are very honorable and are very like set in their natures. So like the thieves and such are honorable, and there's the bartender who doesn't snitch on them because it's not in his nature to snitch. Despite even when the thieves are holding him up, he says, "No, that's not the sort of person I am." So yeah, I thought it was I think it's kind of interesting way to write characters, I suppose. It goes, no one in this film is very chatty. They're all quite monosyllabic. I think you can sense a rich inner life to a lot of them, particularly Corey, the thief. Who's our main boy.
There's
nice.
Yeah, it was nice. I liked the cinematography a lot as well. There were a couple really cool shots. Like there's one where he's in the train and it's like zoomed all the way in on him, and then it zooms out and it just keeps zooming out until the train's like you can see the whole train, and it's like a helicopter shot or something. Which I don't even know how they did that. I guess just a really long lens zoom thing, but that was a really cool shot. And there was another nice one where when he's playing pool by himself, and the shots from kind of above the table, and the table takes up the whole screen, and like that's how they reveal that someone else has come in, because then someone else comes in and hits a ball, and you just see the table and see what's going on, and that kind of there was a lot of very nice cinematography and a lot of nice handheld stuff, and it really reflected what was going on at different points. It was nice.
There's nothing in it that I would say I haven't seen before, but it's all just done in a very lovely way. There's the way people move in the film is really nice. I keep saying nice, but like that's just what it is. It's got a lot of grace to it. Maybe that's the better word. It's a very graceful film.
Yeah.
If it's retreading familiar ground, but that counts for a lot. You know, well, why would you watch a normal heist movie when you could watch one that is really nice to watch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a very pleasant time with it, I would say.
Yeah. Good. Me too. Much else you want to say about this film? We're kind of rushing through it a little bit, but
we are. But at the same time, the thing is, and I think you'd agree, there's not actually a lot to say about it because it does a very simple thing, but it does it quite well.
Yeah, it's just a nice film.
That's really all I can say.
What do you think about the idea that all men are guilty?
There's the policeman, yes. I think that sort of goes back to the idea of them all living with a code. Every man in this world of miracles. I suppose it's sort of like a verbalization of an instinct that I'm sure a lot of police officers have, where they just assume, or at least the attitude they have towards the public, which is very antagonistic. Although obviously as an actual philosophy, it's complete nonsense. So I suppose it's kind of strange in that way. But I suppose that's kind of what's scary about the police, isn't it? So yeah, I suppose because he's not really a proper character; he's a cipher, the police chief, because it's the detective who we follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I suppose he's an interesting stand-in to sort of discuss the attitudes of the police, particularly if you're going to place them as antagonists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And talking about the police, the other film we're watching this week is no, I'm joking. We're not going on to it quite yet because we have to rate. We have to rate this film.
Yeah, I did like that. There's a little sort of parallel in that we're doing both sides of the law one at a time.
Yeah. Well, Sherlock Holmes is not really a policeman in any regard.
No, particularly in that film. We'll get onto that.
Get onto that.
So yeah, The Cercle Rouge is a very good film. Words don't do it justice, but I would rate it a pretty. I'd say a weak buy if it's fairly cheap.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say buy as well.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a film that I think you have to be in the correct headspace for. But
yeah.
It'll reward you.
Yeah. Buy that shit.
Yes. I'm kind of glad we didn't have to talk about it for a full hour, though, because I would not be able to.
Yeah.
Cool. Now on to a film where I have more opinions.
Oh, do you? Good. Oh, wait.
So.
One thing we forgot to say about the Cercle Rouge. The title is based on a quote at the start of the film, which is put out as something that Buddha said about how someone draws a red circle and that a group of men. Well, I can't remember what the quote is. I've forgotten it now. But it's about how men.
I brought it here.
Okay, say
it. When men, even unknowingly, are to meet one day, whatever may befall each, whatever the diverging paths, on the said day they will inevitably come together in the red circle.
Yeah, which is in the
made
film
up.
It's quoted by Buddha, but it's made up. Which
you can tell, but it's completely meaningless.
Yeah. What? How do you think the title relates to the film? And
well, I suppose a lot of the film focuses on like meetings of fate and coincidence.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's really. I mean, it's not really. I wouldn't say it's like a proper theme. Maybe more of a motif. Although, given that's the title of the film, maybe that's unfair of me. But there's a lot of happenstance going on. So I suppose that's why it's called that.
Yeah. Cool.
If you have an alternative theory.
No. I was trying to think if there's. I mean, the people meet by chance, and the quote kind of says that, and it fits so well because it's made up. If it was a real quote, then maybe it would not fit so well. But and apparently he made up a quote for another one of his films as well, which I've not seen the film, but
although I guess it's stupid.
I guess it's a pretty common practice.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that tweet, which is like, I can't believe the makers of Fargo lied about it being a true story. Can they imagine the damage they've done?
No.
I do think that sometimes.
Yeah.
There's no harm in it, I suppose, is there?
Not really. Unless you're a Buddhist and you don't like...
Well, I mean, I guess other than like maybe playing off like the Buddha's reputation for saying very cryptic things, that's not too offensive.
No.
Although I guess I'm not the one to decide.
You're okay, cool. So, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. I have no historical context for this one. It was directed by Billy Wilder. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I was going to look up.
What?
I'm going to look up what happened on the day it released.
Okay. It was directed by Billy Wilder, who's very famous and has made a bunch of films that I've not seen, including Some Like It Hot and Sunset Boulevard. But have you seen other Billy Wilder films?
I've seen Some Like It Hot. I don't know. Wait, he made some. That's what?
I think he did. Maybe he might have produced it rather than directed it. I'm not sure, but he it was on his filmography.
But that's a film that's good. Jesus. Yeah,
I
knew he
tell
made...
based on that that we're going to have a disagreement about this film.
Yeah, I'm genuinely surprised he made Some Like It Hot.
Yeah, he made Some Like It Hot. He made Sunset Boulevard, which is another Very highly.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it. Same with The Apartment, which is also highly
Apartment,
rated.
yeah.
And again,
Yeah, but these all
something else.
have great scores on IMDb and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's made a lot of very popular things.
Do you know?
Good for him.
Okay, right. Yeah, he has. Good. That's Billy Wilder.
Yeah.
He directed this film. What did you look up what happened on the day?
The Electoral Reform Society called for the introduction of proportional representation in Northern Ireland.
Right.
I don't know if that was successful. I don't know much about. The day before, the US and USSR signed an agreement to discuss joint space efforts. I'm sure that came to a lot.
Yeah.
And the day before that, Dunesbury debuted this week, the comic strip, which is genuinely kind of interesting to me.
Dunesbury, what's that?
Dunesbury, I don't even know. I just see it in whenever I'm in other countries, I sometimes see it in newspapers.
Oh.
I don't know what comics are about. It's a comic strip. It's just about. I think it's just. I don't think it's got a plot. It's just one guy's worldview, but it's quite popular and it ran for a very long time. I think it might still be going actually. So,
Yeah, I'm reading about one about Uber here.
Okay, yeah. Oh, Wikipedia hasn't updated. They say it launched 49 years ago. What a bunch of nerds.
That is pretty nerdy. You'd think they would set it up.
Yeah, once you click on the article itself, it updates. Anyway, I dare say that this is maybe... Oh, do you want me to read out the first Dunesbury cartoon that debuted this week?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a guy. He's in American football gear. He's sitting on a couch. Guy says, "Well, here I sit at college. Anytime my new roommate, I know he'll be cool since he's computer selected. You just fill in a form, send it in, and presto, ideal roommates. Hi there, my name's Mike Dunesbury. I hail from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and women adore you. Glad to meet you, Rumi. Of course, there are a few..." And then he looks at the camera and he says, "Of course, there are still a few bugs in the system."
Nice. A lot of the more recent ones seem to be about Trump.
I'm guessing. Well, I mean, what else do newspaper columnists talk about?
Yeah.
Have you seen what Scott Adams talks about these days?
No.
The creator of Dilbert. He's very obsessed with Trump and mental prisons and his ability to hypnotize you into having an orgasm. He wrote a blog about 2 years ago, and he says that if you read the blog post, you'll have a mind-bending orgasm. So, if you're ever in the mood for something like that. I can't say I've ever tried it, because I don't really want to have an orgasm from him. But, to each their own.
Okay, cool. So comic strips are a thing. What the film?
On the subject of men giving each other orgasms, the private life of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
This film is a Sherlock Holmes film. You heard me say that it was about Dracula earlier, that was a cunning wee joke and a gag and a wee trick.
And I hope no one left because they were not interested in that and would have been interested in Sherlock Holmes. If they did, Jamie, if I look at the analytics and I see that everyone left when you said Dracula, you're off the podcast.
Wow. I'm the money maker, mate. Try and run this thing without me. Anyway, it's a sort of semi-satirical look at Sherlock Holmes, but not really. So it's a lot straighter than I think that description would make one believe. It's a Sherlock Holmes mystery where they try and solve the mystery of this woman whose husband has gone missing, which will take them to the hilly shoals of Inverness and Loch Ness.
There's a bunch of dumb fucking jokes in this film.
There's just so many. And they all have very weird accents, which I don't think are Inverness accents. But when it's an English accent, but they've just put on just enough to let British, in a way that I find quite distracting. But yeah, a lot of Scottish jokes in this film about how they don't wear trousers and their ways are different to us, and they're all very
Yeah.
superstitious. But yeah, a woman turns up on Sherlock and Dr. Watson's doorstep in the middle of the night. She has no memory, but she's trying to find her husband. And they head out on the trail, and they find that he's connected to a plot involving the British government and the Loch Ness Monster. And I guess to just finish off the plot summary, I guess now that I've mostly done it, it turns out that it's all a cover because they're building a submarine, which is quite a twist, and that the lady is not actually the wife of that guy who died. He's dead, by the way. She's actually a German spy. So Sherlock got tricked. What a silly Billy.
Yeah.
The end. We'll go into more detail later because I think this actually does call for a fairly scene by scene analysis, I suppose. But the most interesting thing about this film is that, at least I would say, you might disagree, is that it was a very big source of inspiration for Sherlock and a lot of the other the modern sort of Sherlock dynamic, where Sherlock is very antisocial and kind of a dick, is sort of where that trend started.
Interesting.
So we have it to thank.
Did you know that Sherlock is the most played character ever?
I think I've heard that before, and it certainly doesn't shock me.
Yeah,
I think
it's interesting.
what's nice about Sherlock is that it's one of very few big pop culture products that's in the public domain, and I like that. I think it's a malleable property as well, because really once you have Sherlock and Dr. Watson, then everyone's going to know what it's about. So I like that it's like a property anyone can do what they want with, because you can sometimes see very interesting takes, which would definitely never have been allowed where it's still under copyright.
There's more than 70 actors have played the part in over 200 films.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Who's your
interesting.
fave?
Who's my favorite Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, why not? Let's establish our.
I don't know if I've seen any other Sherlock Holmes things.
Jesus
honestly.
Christ. 200 films and you haven't seen a single one.
I honestly, Jamie, I don't think I have. Let me look. Sherlock Holmes films. Oh, this is the trilogy.
Alright, well, I feel it might be important to lay out my cards here. So just to say, my personal opinion on Sherlock Holmes is that I really like the character and I really like the world. But I've never really enjoyed a Sherlock Holmes story or adaptation. I often find the mysteries very engaging. And I find that most of the adaptations are disappointing. Yeah?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done there.
No.
Do you know what I've seen?
Is it the Robert Downey Jr. ones?
It's Sherlock Gnomes.
Oh, Sherlock Gnomes. Perfect.
I've seen Sherlock Gnomes. I've not seen Enola Holmes. I've not seen Holmes and Watson. I've not seen any of the Downey Jr. ones. I've not seen any of the old ones. I've not seen any... This is the first Sherlock Holmes film I've seen that is not Sherlock Gnomes. I believe.
Incredible.
And I didn't watch Sherlock either, with Cumberbatch.
Okay. So just to finish off what I was saying,
Yeah.
I never really liked the actual stories, at least when reading them. And I find most of the TV adaptations that I've seen, I either find them kind of boring in the same way, or in the case of BBC's Sherlock, I think it's awful. I hate that show. I think a lot of the carryover from my hatred for that show is why I don't like this film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say that my favourite actual Sherlock adaptation is the Robert Downey Jr. ones, which I know is horrible. But I do like them. And if I was being serious, I'd say Basil Rathbone. I like default pick. Like I say, for me, it's very much, I like the atmosphere. I like the world of Sherlock Holmes. I do not like the actual stories. This is an important...
What about The Great Mouse Detective, Jamie?
The Great Mouse Detective is a film that has Sherlock Holmes in it. It's not a Sherlock Holmes film, although it is also very good.
I've not seen it, but I'm just looking through the list here on IMDb. There's a list.
In
of
The Great
all
Mouse Detective,
films.
they're mice that live in Sherlock Holmes' house.
Oh, I see. That one sounds good. Man, there are a lot of these Sherlock Holmes films.
Yeah.
But I quite like this one. I think I might watch more.
You should. You should watch... Which subscription services do you have access to?
Why did you say subscription so weird?
I don't know. I was just thinking because I would probably recommend Elementary of all the adaptations, but that's so. Actually, I'm not sure Elementary's available anywhere right now.
I've got
like I said,
Prime, Netflix, Mubi, Now TV, Sky Cinema, the BFI player. I've got your account.
if you've got
one of my families has Disney Plus.
If you've got Now TV, I'd recommend watching Elementary if it's still on there, because I think that's probably the best adaptation. Even if it takes a lot of liberties, except that it's not on there. So I guess
that's also a series, though.
Yeah, it's a series. Oh, you want to watch a film? That's harder.
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, I don't want to fucking. Oh wait, it's good. Wait, that Elementary is Johnny Lee Miller as Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's very cool.
Oh, and a female Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. This one does sound interesting.
It is good. It's set in New York, so my sister doesn't like me watching it because she hates the idea that Sherlock Holmes can take place anywhere outside of Britain. So I've only seen like 5
that
episodes.
is fair. That is fair. Wait, so does Johnny Lee Miller have an American accent in it?
No, he's still British. He's just an expat.
Oh, apparently he's British American though. He's got American citizenship.
Yeah, but that's because he's lived there for many years.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not that he's.
It's not.
He became an American citizen in November 2014. Interesting.
Mm.
Anyway, this film.
Right. Yes. So this film's sort of hook, I would say, is that it's supposed to be It's supposed to look behind the version of Sherlock that's presented by Watson to be more clandestine.
So the kind of the idea is that all the books that exist in real life are based on a real person, but they're written by Watson, essentially.
That's the concept, because in the Sherlock Holmes books, within the universe of the books, the Sherlock Holmes books also exist, and Sherlock also complains about how inaccurate they are all the time.
Right.
So that's not in this film. That's part of the original source material.
Oh, I didn't know
Sherlock Holmes. Just
Interesting.
Watson exaggerates. Yeah, it's actually quite postmodern for a Victorian film.
Yeah.
For a Victorian series. I was thinking...
Quite postmodern for a Victorian film, yeah.
Although it would be modern, and then it would be completely fine, because that's when modernism was. Anyway, so the first part of this film, which is sort of setting up their dynamic, has Holmes has just sort of successfully solved the case, and he returns to his cocaine habit, which is listed in the books, and it's everyone's favorite thing to talk about, because it's quite weird, because in the books it's just like one sentence, which is like, and then Sherlock Holmes injected cocaine into himself because he was bored, and it sort of moves on. But
this film really hammers home that whenever he's bored, you know where he's going to be.
Yeah, it's kind of upsetting actually when it shows like Watson like really desperately trying to like get him to quit and being unsuccessful. I suppose a lot of it is like due to the fact that like obviously this was a 70s film, so drug culture was very much the issue of the day. So I suppose it's harder for an audience at this point, because obviously 10 years later they'd all be doing cocaine. But you know, what can you do? So the big thing about this film, or part of its lasting legacy, is that there's a scene in it where Holmes, in order to wriggle out of a Russian ballerina who's trying to get him to produce a child with her, pretends that he and Watson are gay, which is an outrageous joke and very funny. Everyone has a big laugh. But if you look at the interviews from behind the scenes, Billy Wilder says that he initially wanted Holmes to be explicitly homosexual, but like repressed, and that was supposed to be like his thing. And Mark Gatiss has said that I think Mark Gatiss is gay. He said that he really liked the film. He thought it was a melancholy film that is about Sherlock falling in love with Watson but not being able to speak it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do you think that's true? Oh, I was about to ask what you thought. I think it comes across to me as that was the plan, and then because I mean I think it's pretty clear that you're supposed to think that he falls in love with the German spy.
Yes, and it's awful. So shit.
But I think this at the start of the film, they you can sort of see where he was going to be gay.
Yeah.
And then you can see that someone at some point has said he can't be gay. It just has to be that he's not met the right woman yet, and now he meets the right woman, right? And then loses her.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of strange because like the first 20 minutes or so of the film until like the woman shows up in their door, like you can say they're setting the scene, but like other than that, they are quite spectacularly not relevant to the rest of the plot. Whereas if they were setting up an arc about Holmes being homosexual, then they would be very obviously relevant in that they'd be like Holmes sort of showing that he's not interested in women and Watson showing that he's not interested in men. And that would be the
that's what I thought the film was going to be, because it's called The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. The whole thing is that it's the stuff that can't be told. So I was like, okay, well, it's not going to be just a normal mystery film. Or I thought, okay, it will be a normal mystery film. That's just a dumb title. And then when it started, and it was just a short sequence, and it implies he's gay, and then he starts falling out with Watson, I started thinking, is this film actually gonna, is it gonna try and build the character not around some stupid case, but around, his personality and whatever. Yeah. And then it kind of loses that, and I wonder if maybe that is a result of some kind of studio pressure or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, from what? Yeah, I know. I'm looking at the language Billy Wilder uses, and it says "wanted to." Which
exactly.
implies, I think, that someone else would have maybe stamped it out. Because certainly, it's a massively missed opportunity.
I mean, it sounds like he started developing the script, with that in mind, and then it was pretty quickly shot down.
Yeah, because now that you mention it, like, the weird thing about this film is that it's called The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, right? But it's so unremarkable as Sherlock Holmes stories go. It's slightly sillier than like the average Sherlock Holmes case, but it's not like incredibly so,
Yeah.
It's very Scooby-Doo. It's a Scooby-Doo mystery.
I thought it was very Tintin, personally.
I think Tintin is more willing than Scooby-Doo to acknowledge that governments exist. That's probably more appropriate. But yeah, certainly it's quite childish. I think that's maybe the best way to say.
Yes, definitely. Which I actually liked.
Oh yeah?
Personally.
Well, I didn't like that, so why don't you tell me why you liked it?
I just found it pretty chill to watch it. It was quite nice.
I suppose
it took me back to reading Tintin books when I was younger, and it was a nice little, like the mystery was slowly undeveloped, and I didn't necessarily guess it early, but I kind of knew what was going on at all points. There was no like dumb twists or anything. It was just nice and smooth sailing, and it was good.
Okay, but from that description,
I do think it was a big missed opportunity based on what you see in the first 20 minutes of the film.
Yeah. I think that the mystery, if we're going to talk about that briefly, isn't... I wasn't at any point very interested in what happened. I think because you don't really care enough about the female character, whose name I've forgotten because she is so fucking dull.
Gabrielle.
Jamie.
Although her real name's Fräulein von Hofmannsthal.
Yes. But either way, she's not a great romantic presence. She just kind of sits there and obviously sends out messages using Morse code for her umbrella. I genuinely can't believe that Sherlock Holmes would not recognize it as Morse code. It's really obvious, even if someone doesn't know Morse. But yeah, if the idea is going to be the stupider one, which is Sherlock just hasn't met the right woman, then why would it be this one?
Because she's a spy. Because she tricked him, Jamie.
She didn't even really trick him. Sherlock's oh yeah, well I figured it out pretty quickly. But it's not I wouldn't say they come off as intellectual equals in the film, which I guess if you're going to go for Sherlock could only ever love this one particular woman would have to be the angle you pick, right? And she's not presented that way, I'd say, really. She gets one up on him, but she doesn't get one up on the audience. I think that's a really big thing. But I think
Yeah,
for
true.
Tristan to work, she'd also have to trick us because
Yeah.
when the reveal happens, we know it's coming. So it doesn't feel like, oh, she's so smart. It just feels like, oh, Sherlock's such an idiot. Why wouldn't he have figured this out? So maybe
Because
that's
he's in
the
love,
big.
Jamie.
I,
Because he's
I,
in love.
I absolutely hate the fucking. I hate the impulse to have Sherlock have romantic interests because I think it's very untrue to the original character. And I think it's like really heteronormative. I especially hate in both Sherlock and this how they keep making jokes about him being gay as if that's the most unbelievable thing in the world. I think it would be perfectly fine and also genuinely interesting, vastly more interesting than keeping on making jokes about it if he was gay.
Yeah.
So this entire thing is like is like a fucking exercise in frustration for me as we have like this like, ooh, wouldn't it be weird if Holmes was gay? Now let's go watch like a fucking stupid ass Scooby-Doo mystery. If you've watched Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster, then you have seen this film. It's the same plot.
I've not seen Scooby-Doo and the
Am
Loch
I
Ness
wrong?
Monster. Could you please enlighten me, Jamie, as to what happens in Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster?
In Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster, the Loch Ness is haunted by a monster, who's the Loch Ness Monster, but then it turns out to be a secret military submarine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When did Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster come out?
Way after this, in fairness. It's part of What's New Scooby-Doo, so it'd be post...
What's new,
Dolphin.
Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. By the way, that is the best Scooby-Doo theme song, in my opinion.
I mean,
What were
probably...
your thoughts
Well,
on
no. I'd say the 60s one. 60s one has... It's, I guess...
The original
That
one.
one's... The original one's sort of
Scooby-Dooby-Doo,
charming.
where are you? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
but
that
suppose
one's really good, but
the noughties one is also quite charmingly dated.
the
and
Naughties one is awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just found this because I had this open on my fucking laptop. But did you know that the first cut of this film was 3 hours and 20 minutes long?
No.
Apparently, there's an awful lot of like extra scenes and like little mini-sodes, as it were, which have just been completely cut. Yeah. Do you want to hear some of them? Whilst we think of other opinions to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's originally a modern day prologue in which Dr. Watson's grandson found the lost papers, which, fair enough. Worth losing, but
I mean, they kind of showed that anyway, right?
yeah, it's just like, I have this strong box. It has a new story in it, which is more efficient. So, whatever. I don't think the scene would have added much.
No.
Other than being another really irritating, but we know Watson isn't gay. Then we go to originally there'll be Holmes and Watson are introduced by having just solved the case in Yorkshire on the train back, and then Holmes does this thing where he deduces that the man is an Italian music teacher who's having an affair with a wife of a nobleman. So cool. There's a bit where Inspector Lestrade, who isn't in this film, asks Holmes and Watson to solve the case of the upside down room, where there's a corpse in a room that is completely upside down. So like everything's on the ceiling. But then it turns out that Watson staged the whole thing in order to help Holmes quit cocaine by having an interesting thing to do, and then Holmes destroys his vials of cocaine, and Watson agrees to stay. But then it turns out that Holmes has hidden the full vials in his violin case. And then during the scene on the train to Scotland, there was originally going to be a scene to flashback where he told her about the student days at Oxford, where he falls in love with a beautiful girl from afar.
Oh.
Ugh. I guess it's the fucking stupid. And then it turns out she was a prostitute. Oh my god.
Who was the prostitute? Oh, the one he fell in love with from afar.
Yeah. Stupid. And then eventually there's like a last case where like they travel back to England and discover murders happened on board. And then the last like epilogue thing is Inspector Lestrade coming in and asking Holmes to solve Jack the Ripper. Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it would be interesting if you just had like a Sherlock Holmes film, which is more about like Sherlock and Holmes and Watson's like private life, but like it's just sort of like flitting between cases they solve, like they're all in the
Well,
background. If you know what I mean? It's
that's really what I thought something was going to be. I mean, I know I said it, but watching the first 20 minutes, they go to the ballet. You think it's going to be a case. It turns out that it's not a case. Holmes might be gay. They go back and have an argument. Watson's going to move out. This is all going to be about how he deals with that and how they recoup, and maybe there'll be a little mini case or two, and then the woman turns up and it's all forgotten basically.
yeah,
I mean, it still has elements of the private life, that he's not met the right woman yet and stuff, and
yeah.
I guess that kind of works if that's what the studio needed. But yeah, it's just
It's the most boring possible conclusion to, Sherlock Holmes is a bachelor. I guess he just hasn't met the right woman.
Yeah.
And also the right woman isn't that interesting. Like I say, I feel the ways out of this would be either to have like the right woman is intellectual equal and like they're very clearly on like the same playing field. Which I think would be a cowardly way out, would at least be the way out if you're wanting to keep him hetero. And then, like the way most adaptations do it is they say Holmes is asexual, which like conforms to the source material. And then if you weren't a coward, you could say that he and Dr. Watson are gay, and I would admire you greatly. But no one has had the stones yet.
Why don't you do it, Jamie?
I could do it. You and I could do it right now, Duncan. No one owns Sherlock Holmes. Anyone can make a Sherlock Holmes film. Do you want to make a quick Sherlock Holmes radio play right now?
Right here, right now.
Right here, right now. I'll play Holmes. Okay, you ready?
All right. Am I Watson then?
You'll be Watson. Yes. Hello, John. I just came round to say that I love you in a sexual way.
Sorry, Holmes. I'm not gay.
Are you sure?
No, I might be bi.
How about I kiss you and then we'll find out.
Okay.
Mwah. Mwah. What do you think now?
Yes, I definitely like women, but I also like that kiss. I am a bisexual, and you are gay, Holmes, and I'm
Hooray!
Watson.
The end. What fun.
That was good.
Yeah,
I think
you know what?
should,
I think that's one of the best things we've ever done, I think.
Yeah, it was good, man. I really felt the connection there.
Yeah, man. I try not to get too involved in my roles. But,
But that one.
They really overtook me, the emotional beauty of the part.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, it would be, yeah. So,
yeah, but anyway, I think, not to shit on Mark Gatiss, but I don't see much evidence for his reading of the film in there. But art's subjective. He's more than entitled to believe it. I think that this is one of those films where I think it's very clear in modern adaptations where it really just seems like Holmes hates Watson, and it's not entirely clear why he wants to have him around.
Yeah.
The nice Victorian ones is that it's pretty clear that they're friends, and most modern ones just sort of forgo that, and it's still, well, obviously they're hanging to get around together. They're Holmes and Watson. I know they keep yelling at each other and clearly get on each other's nerves, but they're Holmes and Watson.
I kind of like that though. It's like the old married couple kind of vibe,
Well, yeah,
you and
I think
I've got
I'm
that
sure
vibe, Jamie.
Of course. I mean, I'm sure that's the vibe they're going for. But I think particularly, I think it's more of an issue in the BBC Sherlock, which is why I'm complaining about it.
Right.
Where they haven't known each other for very long, but Sherlock is just consistently horrible to Watson the entire time.
Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough.
What else?
Fuck, I was going to say something, and then we got down in the married couple thing. What was it? But something I didn't find very convincing is so he knows that his brother's involved somehow, right? What's his brother's name?
Yes, Mycroft is in this film. He's played by Mycroft. He's played by Christopher Lee.
From Hammer Films and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. So he knows that he's involved somehow, and he's like, oh, it's going to be evil something. It turns out it's a government military project, right? The submarine thing. And then, they kind of just brush over the fact that 3 people are dead, as a result
Yeah.
of it. They're kind of like, oh yeah, so unfortunately, can you say midgets? I mean, that's what they're called in the film, but I don't
Little
know. I
people.
don't know how offensive that term is.
I'd say little people or
Two of
dwarfs.
the little people, are dead, and also the inventor of the air pump's dead. But we're still cracking on, and we had to bury them in unmarked graves, because it would just be too, too obvious for the Germans what we were doing.
Once the fucking government gets involved, like this film's like attitude towards death starts to get really weird. All the German spies die at the end of the film horribly drowning, and like it's supposed to be like funny, and it's just like haha they died.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very weird way. So I feel like
it's bizarre.
for detective fiction, you have to be like kind of invested in like the value of individual lives, right? It's very weird if someone who usually solves murders is like, oh, but 6 people died, but they're Germans, so it's fine.
Bearing in mind, we're not at war at that point. Like,
yeah,
just another.
There's no reason for them to hate each other.
Yeah.
On a connected note, the Queen Victoria in this film strikes a very weird vibe of being very naive and anti-war, which I realize is. So I don't think anyone in their entire lives has ever associated Queen Victoria with pacifism.
No. Pretty funny though.
I mean, yeah, maybe it doesn't seem like it's meant to be a joke, other than just like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if a queen was like super naive? It's a weird vibe.
The queen also wants to have all sailors be little people because it make it easier to pin the medals on, because of course Queen Victoria was short.
Yeah, she's very short in this film.
To be fair, the Queen Victoria bit was kind of funny. But
it's kind of weird. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say this film's much of a comedy, in that I think the first 20 minutes is clearly jokey jokes, and then there's like towards the end it gets a bit back into that mode. But most of the time, I'd say it's actually played fairly straight. At least no more than like an average feel good romp.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, it's pretty straight. There's a couple jokes and stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, lol, Queen Victoria's here. She wants a bunch of little people to be sailors, and she's anti-war, and also we're just gonna drown all these German spies. Lol, it'll be funny, and it's such like a change in tone. Like you compare the scene where they dig up, what's his name, the Belgian air pump guy, right? The scene where they dig him up, and it's shocking. Like, oh my god, all this stuff.
Well, I think you could get a lot of comedy out of a scene of Sherlock Holmes robbing a grave. I think that's
you can, but the way it's played is very different. Like, sure.
Yeah, but it's played straight.
It's so funny. Yeah.
Which just seems strange to me. I guess if I were hypothetically remaking this film, which I couldn't do because this film won't be public domain, but I could make a very similar film and it would be fine. Then I think I would focus more on Holmes' sexuality and also more on like his immorality, which is also an interesting angle, which the film sort of hints towards but doesn't really. If you know what I mean, in terms of like not caring too much about the actual lives of the people involved. I don't know.
It's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, well, what else do I have to say? I don't think there's much really. There's a couple bits where he whistles nicely. He whistles the Loch Lomond, the song Loch Lomond. He whistles the theme from Swan Lake, and he's pretty damn good at whistling.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to say. It's not a particularly interesting film. I genuinely feel bad that we talked about it for longer than we did the Red Circle. But I just, I don't know. Sometimes blandness is more noteworthy. It's hard to talk about something that's visually interesting because it's obviously by its very nature it doesn't work in word form. Whereas if we're just talking about the script of a thing, that's much easier. Yeah. You got anything else to say, or shall we just?
We can rate it.
Cool.
Rate it and move on.
I would say that this is a don't watch from me. I don't think it's worth anyone's time. As you mentioned, there are an awful lot of Sherlock Holmes films. You can probably just watch one of them.
I'm gonna say you should watch it.
Watch it.
Because it's entertaining.
Or stream it.
Stream it.
Stream it. Okay, that's fair.
Because it's very entertaining.
That I feel like a slight problem with our rating system is that we say to stream stuff a lot, but then most of the films we watch aren't on a streaming service.
Yeah, I mean it's true. It's true. I was thinking of giving this one a buy, but then I think given that I've given
high praise.
Given that I gave the last one a buy, and then this one is not as good, and the other one's definitely not a Criterion Collection one, I feel like Stream It is appropriate. But yeah, the things are not available. But I guess what we're saying is add it to your streaming watch list. Actively.
If it ever comes out for sure, because this film was on Netflix until quite recently. I was kind of annoyed to see that then we could have watched it for free. But
we've not watched anything on Netflix, I don't think, have we?
No, which is good because I'm not quite sure how we're going to approach that barrier because you don't have it. But
I do have it.
Oh, do you do? Okay, let me see.
But I've got it. I was going to say I could just use your account, but I have it. So my family has.
Well, the thing is, I don't use. Yeah, I'm in the same thing. I'm in the same situation, which is why I can't give you my Netflix login.
Yeah.
Then I would use the valid ones. Right, do you want to hear what options we have to watch next week, and then we can choose live? And I'm sure fit. Okay, so there's some films that came out. I think the most interesting ones we could do are Dickens! ! Which is a musical based on Scrooge, which was nominated for Best Soundtrack Oscar, which is why I say we could do it. Or we could do our first Carry On film in the film Carry On Loving.
I would like to Carry On.
Okay, let's do a Carry On, because I'm very fond of them. And it's also my turn to pay, so I don't mind doing that.
Okay.
A work of cinematic art. So look forward to that next time, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, before we end, I think both me and Duncan are quite busy today. I certainly am. I haven't done anything interesting other than...
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, what have you been up to?
I have not done anything. I played more Hades, and I did my first successful run of it, which I'm very proud of. But I need to finish it more times to get to the end of the story. So...
Interesting. And you've been writing an essay, right? That's why you've been...
Yeah, I wrote an essay the last weekend, so I haven't done anything else. I watched 2 episodes of Star Trek, but
nice.
You know what? Probably not worth talking about.
I got Space Crew. Do you remember last time I was talking about Space Crew?
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I was pretty disappointed, to be honest. I don't know if I was disappointed because I've played so much of Bomber Crew that I'm used to how it works, and also have played enough that I'm kind of bored of it, or if this one's actually not that good. I'm not really sure. I guess I need to play more and form a proper opinion. But yeah, I would still recommend Bomber Crew. I don't know if I can recommend Space Crew as a game. I watched the first Borat again last weekend.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, really good, actually.
Right.
What? I've not seen the second one yet, no. So don't spoil it.
I quite like the second one. I think there are bits where it lands, there are bits where it doesn't. But you know what? It's a decent time. It's a lot more focused than the first Borat, I suppose, as I read.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought the first one was really good because when I watched it before, I just kind of laughed at how he was funny, how he was a funny man. But now, I feel like you can see more.
Are you like the literal real life version of that meme where it's like, "Ha ha, funny man says my wife," and then like over his head goes the moral corruption of Bush's America?
Yeah.
Is that you?
So the first time I watched it was the "Ha ha, funny man says my wife." Second time I watched it is the realizing that it's deeper. Although I have to say, I've been watching Borat clips as well, and most of them are really not that good.
The Ali G show.
Yeah, I guess from the Ali G show, and I think he's done a character on other things as well, and separately from that. But yeah, like a lot of them are just kind of him saying "my wife," and like the people just react like, "Oh, okay, cool, your wife." You know, like there's a couple, but there's not a lot of clips where he gets like a genuine reaction out of someone. It's shocking. It's more just
he's I think
shocking and people
can be used very well as a character.
Yeah. Like there's one where he talks at like Republican dinner, and they actually just like genuinely laugh at his jokes, and like or a little bit awkward when he says something awkward, and he doesn't really catch them out with much. Like, there's a couple of jokes about women, and it's like, oh, they're misogynistic, but like that's really not a surprise. There's not really any of the jokes that he says that you're like, oh my god, I can't believe you laugh at that. Mostly it's just like awkward silence, and then they like genuinely include him and stuff, which kind of defeats the point of the thing.
Well, I feel like
Whereas
there's parts
the film
of
is a
like
lot more
Borat where he
structured.
uses the character, and it's like, oh, look at what like horrible things people will admit when they think they're in a room with someone who agrees with them. And then there are times where it's like, oh, look at how like people will just like sort of nod and go along when like, oh, weird, when like someone they don't understand is just sort of going on and doing their own thing. And I find the former funny and also like culturally important. And then like when it's just like a nice person who's just not quite sure how to act around like a man who's yelling at them, then I find it hard. It just feels a bit mean spirited to me.
Exactly. Like there was one where he goes to a horse show, right? And he's talking to a woman. And he says like, in Kazakhstan we say man like horse. When a horse is hungry, it's like a man is hungry. And he goes on and does that for like 5 minutes, and she just kind of stands there awkwardly nodding and like looking at the camera a couple of times. And I was kind of watching. And I was like, this isn't very funny. Like what's the purpose? Like, this is just awkward, but not it's not even awkward in a funny way. Like, I find cringe humor quite funny normally, and this is just like there's nothing to it really, which
I find everything I've watched of Sacha Baron Cohen's like very hit or miss. I think it's just because like it depends so much on like the target, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Rather than necessarily, because I think if you get like a sufficiently horrible person, then they like will like do horrible shit, and that'll be like really interesting and funny. But like a lot of the time, it is just like people who are mostly normal, and it just feels bad. Like there's a sequence with a Holocaust survivor in the sequel. I'm sorry to spoil this a little, but like I felt really bad during that, even though like I learned later that like the person in question was cool with it. But like just watching that, I just felt uncomfortable.
Right. Cool.
I have another essay to write, so unless you've got anything else to say.
No, I don't think so.
Julia. See you next time for Carry On Loving That, dudes. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye!
The return of Borat voice is the final curse of this year.
Yes. It's nice. Hope you enjoyed my podcast with my friend. And goodbye.